Caroline. She's the queen of talking. Hey, what's on your mind? She's on the inside. She got the scoop on the ones to watch, on the ones that's hot. No one can do it quite like Caroline.
Hey y'all, it's Caroline Hobby and welcome to my show, Get Real from the Music City, capital of the world. In each episode, I get the real story from the most inspiring, interesting people in Nashville, Tennessee. I have done everything in the music entertainment industry. I was in the trio Stealing Angels with 2 top 50 country charting songs, a finalist and runner-up on season 22 and season 24 of The Amazing Race. You can currently catch me on CMT's hit show, I Love Kelly Pickler. I am an entertainment news correspondent and host for the TV show Nashville Insider, and my podcast, Get Real with Caroline Hobby, was featured on iTunes' New and Noteworthy and charted on iTunes' Top 200 podcast. I'm also married to the smoking hot front man, Michael Hobby, of the #1 chart-topping band, 1,000 Horses. So buckle up and get ready to get real with me, Caroline Hobby. Welcome to my show. Okay, April Nemeth is in the hissy. What up, girl?
What's up? How are you?
I was just telling you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you have to be one of the most beautiful people that has ever walked the face of the earth.
Thank you. That's so nice of you to say.
You're just like a flawless looking human.
No, I have flaws, trust me.
I don't see them.
Okay.
They're not visible to the naked
I'll write
eye.
them down for you and send them.
Okay, I need to see it to believe it.
Okay.
You are so stunning, but not just on the
Thank you.
outside, on the inside too, which is really what makes you dynamite. Because you have this, you had the courage and the ability to follow a dream. And I think that is something that is so difficult to do, especially even sometimes for women, you know, and not to be this, it's harder to be a woman, but you launched a company in a huge thriving city of Nashville, and you did it all by yourself, and it's called Vibe Chefs. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to talk about how you got inspired to do that, what led you to caring so much about health and to wanting to make that your business to help other people have an easy access to health, because your slogan is good food, good vibes, our food, tailored nutrition, and custom cooking for those who can't, won't, or don't want to do it for themselves.
Correct.
So tell me where this vision came from.
To be totally honest, this wasn't my dream. Like,
what was your dream? What brought you to Nashville?
well, I moved to Nashville about 8 or 9 years ago now, immediately following my college graduation. I wanted to work in the music business in any capacity.
So you just wanted to work in the music business?
Yeah. I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, well, I can either be a singer or I can work at the radio.
So you sing also?
No, I don't. But I was like, those are the 2 options in country music. That's what I thought, because I was naive. I Googled Nashville and I was like, oh, I guess this is where country music happens. I like country music. That's what I'm going to do with my life.
So how did you decide that you liked country music so much? So you loved country music?
I did. I grew up all over, but mostly in California, where country music is not really super happening, or it wasn't at least back then. But it was just my thing. I was really into it. My parents were both from Georgia, and so I was raised kind of in that Southern mentality. And that was just something that was always really close to my heart. I had this connection to it where I felt like that was like
it's
me.
like you're calling you.
Yeah, and so I was like, if I could have a job in that, that would be tight. So I was like, I'm gonna do that. So I just moved out here after college.
So just off of a love in your heart for it.
Yeah, and I
But with no idea what you were going to do?
No, didn't know one person, didn't have any leads or anything.
What did you do when you got here?
I knew a friend of a friend of a friend who put me in touch with somebody who was going to get me a job. And I was like, oh, totally, that's going to work out great.
You just believed it would work.
Yeah, I was like, okay. So I drove out here and I
love that you just went for it.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's my life. I'm just like, okay, this sounds good. So I came out here and stayed in a hotel. I booked one night at the extended stay in Brentwood, because for sure I was going to meet this person. They were going to give me a job.
This is going to happen.
Yeah, so I kept booking night after night after night. And this lady that I was supposed to meet kept putting me off, and I was like, okay. So after 7 days, I was like, this is stupid. What am I doing? I need to leave. So I packed up my stuff, and I was like, I'm leaving in the morning. I got a call that night that said, hey, can you come to this event tomorrow night and meet me and we'll chat real quick. And
so
I was
this
like,
girl
sure.
who was going to give you the job finally called.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll stick around, whatever. And at this point I'm like, well, I'm not counting on anything. But so she gives me the address and she's like, where's something nice? And I was like, okay. And so I get there and it's like the People magazine launch party for Miranda Lambert at the Hutton Hotel. It's like some big swanky event. And I was like, like, okay. So I went and talked to her for like, 15 minutes, and she liked me, I guess. And so then the next day she calls me and she's like, so, she was the CEO of CMA. And
how did you get linked up with her to begin with?
Like some super random connection of like a friend of like,
Put
I
you
don't
in
even
contact
know.
with her? And you
Yeah.
just reached out to her?
Yeah. And then
I love that
and
you
then
just reached out to her.
Yeah, and she ended up being the CEO of the Country Music Association, and she was like, "Can you come on board and help me like be my assistant?" And then also, I just got a divorce, so can you help me with my kids? And also, we have a third like level in our house. You could live there. Like everything that I needed, like a job, a place to live, like all of this stuff.
Are you kidding me?
No, and so that was like my first.
Hold on, whoa,
thing.
whoa. Okay, and to me, those are the moments. Those are some of the defining moments in life where it's almost like God, the higher force, is like, I'm going to give you a break so you know that you're on the right track.
Right.
So you know that you're not going to throw in the towel and give up. Do you feel that way?
I do now, but I didn't then.
What did you feel then?
I was just like, cool, that was lucky. Like at that point, I knew when I first got
super
to
lucky.
Nashville.
That's
when
like a dream right there.
Yeah, it was. And I was stoked. Like I was so pumped. I was like, this is awesome. I mean, to be honest, learned way too much, way too fast about the dirty inside of the industry that most people don't.
Because you're right
see.
there in the thick of it.
Oh yeah.
She's running a huge.
Yeah. And
So
I
you're
saw
helping her
everything.
out.
And I was like, okay.
What did you see
It
that
was a fast
shocked you?
track of learning. I mean, I don't know, just like the politics of it, the inside of it. And I also got a really good perspective of like just the layout of it. Like I really quickly understood how the labels and the publishers and the PROs and like all the aspects of it like function together, because CMA is kind of like this thing that's affiliated with all of them, and all of her board members were the heads of all of these other entities. And so I got to create relationships with each of them when I would start to email them or whatever for her on her behalf. And I mean, and some of those relationships, like honestly, like they helped me. I got interviews, I got mentored by some of these people, and I still like connect with some of them. And so I do feel like very blessed and lucky to have had that opportunity.
How long did you live there?
Live with
her?
I don't even remember at this point. Maybe a year or so.
That's
until
amazing.
I like got my own apartment. And
That's amazing.
yeah, so it was awesome. But yeah, at that point, like I felt in my heart that Nashville was where I was supposed to be, but I didn't have like the relationship with God that I do now. That like now looking back, I see how much like He worked in that. But then I was just young and like all about me,
How did you start developing this relationship with God?
I pursued it through.
What made you want to pursue it?
I went to a church called The Belonging here, and it's like fantastic. It's very much like spirit-led. It's nothing like any church I've ever been to. The pastors
Some
are
churches
super
are
cool.
scary. They make you feel like you're
yeah.
gonna rot in hell if you do anything wrong. And I feel like that's kind of what
No,
turns
it's
people
not
off
like-
of religion sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely not like that at all. Like, I mean, our pastor's up there in like a flat bill hat, like preaching, like they're so cool. They're so normal. It's like sitting in your living room with anybody like that and then like Holy Spirit. And I mean, it is kind of intense. And at first I remember being super overwhelmed. I was like about to have a panic attack at the back door. Like, I can't handle this. But then once you get into it, it was just
Handle it
like,
because you were feeling things, or
Yeah.
because it was just too.
the presence of God there is like super real. It's like,
And you actually felt it. You went in kind of not feeling anything other than just like, yeah, I
I
have
was
an idea
I was so
of God.
curious about it because I was interested, and I was dating a guy at the time who was, who like knew a lot more about that, and so I was like, okay. And so then when I went there, I like saw this, and I saw what people were experiencing, and I was just really
It wasn't
drawn
just
to that.
like a crock of.
Yeah.
It was
And-
real.
Yeah, but it seemed to me like from the outside. Now when I bring people there, when I bring friends there, I'm always like, okay, like don't be freaked out, don't get turned off. Like it's just so fun and real and cool, and it's just like, it's like a party, honestly. But it's really great. Like it's changed my life.
How has that changed your life? Because I know too, when you earlier in your career, you were on a TV show, Wild Hearts.
Oh gosh, do we have to?
No, we don't have to talk about that. But you pursued a lot of different things before
I've
you
done
found,
a lot of things.
Tell me some of the things you did before you got to your calling, and how God got you to this calling.
So I after CMA, I went through. I worked at another like startup music video network. That ended badly. Then the owner got indicted for fraud. We all got like really screwed, and
So
then,
what did you learn during that? What do you think the point of that was for you to learn?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I've stopped at this point. I've stopped questioning like what was the purpose of that, because I just trust that God's gonna work everything together for good.
I love
and like
that.
sometimes if you
I love that.
if you get off the path, like that's fine. Like
How do you know when you're on the right path? What does it feel like when you're on the right path as opposed to when you're on the wrong path? Is there a different feeling? Can you tell now, or is it easier for you to identify now? Like when you're like, okay, I'm on the right road as opposed to the wrong road?
I mean, I don't even know if it's so much paths, because I don't think life, like time is linear, but I don't think that like you necessarily have this trajectory, this course that you're like predestined and you need to follow it. I think that like life is just a series of going, like just doing things, and like inevitably you'll end up where you're supposed to end up. And like if you I don't know, God redeems things. He redeems everything. So if you mess up, like he'll redeem it and work it together and get you back where you need to be. So I think it's more about just like,
I love that you're just trusting. I love that you're like not trying to analyze it. I have a bad habit of trying to figure out the meaning for everything. I'm like, why did I go through that? There has to be some greater meaning.
Yeah.
When I'm sure there is, but also you're right. It just gets you to the next.
Because you do. I mean, you learn things. You learn about yourself. You learn about experiences, like just in like, or in love, in relationships. You know, it's like, oh, why did I like go through that chapter with this person?
Because now you get past it. You're like, I should have never been with that person.
Yeah, but like I said this the other day, that like the heart that you have now is the culmination and the combination of every experience your heart has ever gone through.
Good, bad,
and
ugly,
so,
great.
Yeah, so you just like aren't who you are without going through all those things.
I
don't
totally agree. I feel like it's so weird to say, because I think I would never want anyone to suffer, including myself or anyone, but those moments of suffering have been the greatest defining moments of my personal life. And a lot of people I interview feel that same way, that surviving a moment that was so painful actually gives you an insight and awareness you could never have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So tell me how your road led you, or your journey led you to one day being like, okay, you did all these jobs. You obviously have a face to be on camera. You could be on camera if you wanted to be in a million different ways. But you decided, okay, I am focusing on health, and this is what I want to do with my life. And then, okay, let me create this amazing company. How did that moment happen?
There was no moment. And that, I think, is like what is different. I hear a lot of people that have had this dream, or like they've known all along that they want to be an artist, or they want to go on tour, or they want to do whatever they want to do, and they've always known it, or like they've had this epiphany where they're like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And for me, there was no moment. Like,
there wasn't.
No, and to be honest, I don't know that there still is. I don't want to run a company. Dude, it's hard.
But you're doing it.
Yeah, but I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to run my own company. No. Like, I don't know. I mean,
it just happened?
Yeah, like it just sort of fell into my lap. Like I've always loved health and nutrition. Like I think that that's super important. I think that we should take care of the bodies we're given and respect that. But
totally.
And I believe there's like a place for that. But for me, where this came from was I just started kind of doing it on the side, and then it grew organically by word of mouth. And I mean, to this day, I've never even really marketed it.
So by doing it on the side, were you just catering for people, or what did you start doing on the side?
Yeah, so I started just working with this one family that they asked me to come over and like organize their pantry and help coach them on, like, they wanted to adopt a paleo lifestyle and get their kids eating healthier food. So they're like, can you just like help us shop for these things and help us like figure out what we need to keep in the house, how to work this into our life? And I was like, sure, that sounds fun. So so I did that, and she's like, well, you know what, we really wanted someone to cook for us. And I was like, oh, no, like I don't know how to cook. Like I cook for myself, but I've never done that before. And she was like, well, let's just try it. And I said, okay. So we tried it, and she loved it, and I loved it, and I had a blast doing it. She would send me recipes that she found on Pinterest or something, and I would go to the store and get all the groceries and stuff, and then I'd go to the house and cook everything and like leave it for them and label it, you know, and they'd come home from work, both the husband and wife.
Homemade meals
ready. And they all just worked super long hours, so they were relying on takeout a lot. They were, you know, just throwing things together, and so this allowed them to have like a home cooked meal.
Yeah.
So I started to just mention that was something I was doing as a hobby. And I had a friend say, oh, I know someone else who would love that. Would you want to do it for someone else too? And I was like, sure, I guess. So
Yeah.
I did. And then she told people, and it just kind of grew to the point that I had to quit anything else I had going on, like working at restaurant jobs or whatever else I was doing on the side while I was waiting for something to happen in my life. And then it got to the point where I was full and I had to like hire someone else to help me. And,
Wow.
and so on and
This
so on
many
and so
people
on.
need this. And truly, I'm someone who needs this. It's like
Yeah.
to have great food that tastes good, that's at your house, so you make good decisions. That is an amazing
Yeah. I mean, there's
gift.
so many reasons that it's helpful to people. Like we work a lot with people that have autoimmune diseases or RA or thyroid disorders or diabetes or just things like health problems or health concerns that are really benefited by the food they eat. And I've had clients that have never tried to adjust their diet and have found like that it's helped immensely when they eliminate foods that are inflammatory or foods that are exacerbating their condition in ways that they didn't even connect that to. Like really what you put in your body is everything. Like it manifests itself in like every single way of your mind, your body, like everything. And so
How did you get passionate about this and learning about this?
it's just something that I've studied for a long time and I've been interested in it for probably 10 years or so. And I'm like kind of a nerd. Like I'm super nerdy at heart. Like I nerd out on like the science of it. And like I love like food as therapy, food as medicine, like things like that. So I read like scholarly articles and stuff, like super dork.
I love that.
So I love to just research it. I love to like read new articles and new studies and stuff on things they're finding.
So your business just started growing.
Yeah, so
And then all of a sudden you're getting celebrities. Because I know you do like Kelsey Ballerini and you do, I don't know if you can tell everyone you do, but
yeah.
you do all these incredible people and you like provide them road meals.
Yeah. So, and that for me came, honestly, Kelsey won't mind that I talk about her, but some of them do. Some of them don't want to disclose it and some of them don't care. But Kelsey, she used to live in my building. And so we kind of got to know each other and this was when she was just getting her start. She was just doing her big like first album push. And I kind of saw the way that she was just really, I mean, it's a lot. It's really taxing. And like,
Yes.
she is the most hardworking, like precious, like I just adore her, everything about her. And, but it was like she was constantly on the road and she was never getting a chance to like reset. And she was writing and she was a hard worker. And so she would go out on the road all the time and then she'd come home for like 2 days and then she'd be back out. And it was like during those 2 days, you know, she lives in this apartment by herself and she has an empty fridge. And like the last thing you want to do when you get home off the road is go to the grocery store or worry about what am I going to make, or like go eat takeout again because that's what you've been eating on the road. And so for me, it was like where my heart was in that was giving them a chance, give like these artists a chance to like reset and have that sense of home when they come home.
I love that.
And just like be able to feel nourished by something, because there is an element of home cooking that
Yes.
really is like, it's not a tangible
Comforting.
thing, but there's a comfort in that I think is really nourishing to your spirit when you're doing something that can be so depleting, like constantly being on the road or constantly eating Waffle House or constantly just like burning out on
Yes.
life.
So do you do all sorts of plans for people? What are the different types of
so-
options you could supply people with food?
We are super custom. So we're not like most meal prep companies where they have like, oh, here's your paleo plan or here's this. So we kind of sit down. I sit down with everybody in the beginning when we do a new client consult and go over all of their nutritional goals, like what kind of issues they're having, things they want to work on, things they want to improve, if they want to lose weight, if they want to, you know, have more energy or whatever their goal is. And then we work with them to figure out like what types of foods would best benefit their body and their health. Because I think everybody is different. I will never say like paleo is best, vegan is best, whatever is best. Like I've been all of them. I've tried all of them. And I don't think that there is any one thing that works specifically for everybody.
So it's different. So you customize it per person.
Yeah, and it might be hybrid. It might be like half vegetarian, half paleo, like, or, you know, certain things that apply to one diet type and certain things that conflict with that. But this person does better on those specific things.
I love that. So you like break it down and you get to know what the person's goals are, what everything going on with their body is. I bet your results are crazy.
Yeah, we've had some really great results, and that makes me super happy. Like when I hear a client come and say like, I can get through my shows like so much better now, or like I only had to use 1 shot of insulin when I used to use 14, or like
oh my gosh,
things like that, or things like I've lost 30 pounds since I started with you that I couldn't get off for 10 years, or just things like that.
That's
that just
really
when
huge.
I see, and it's not about like weight loss, or it's not about numbers or insulin or anything like
health and
that, but
feeling
it's
good.
about like when I see their confidence, like, and I see, or like I have an artist that was like, I haven't had a stomach ache in like 3 weeks, and I used to get them every day, and we had started her 3 weeks ago, and she was just like, I can't believe how much better I feel, and like she's like, my skin is cleared up.
You're
like
changing lives,
all these
April.
things. Yeah, and but I saw the way she was like beaming about it, and she was like going out there feeling so confident, and just that's like what makes my heart happy, or like, you know.
So what do you, when you send an artist with food on the road, what does that look like? Is it like a casserole? Is it like individual meals per meal per day?
It totally depends. Usually when we do road food, so we'll do road food or home food. Some artists like food for when they come home and they get off the bus. Some artists want food to take with them because their trainer's out with them and they need 40 hard-boiled eggs and all this stuff. So it just depends. Like some of them want very specific things, and some of them are just like, I just need a good, healthy, nourishing meal that I know is there, so I'm not eating like a handful of almonds or, you know, bus food late
Pizza.
at night, or 2 a.m. when your only option is that. So
Yes.
so it just totally depends on what people want. And a lot of times for the bus, we do like individually package them so that they're easy to just grab and go, and they fit better in the little bus fridges. And then for home food, those are usually bigger, like more not individually portioned out kind of thing. But if a client needs something individually portioned out, we'll individually portion it out. It's just, it's more like, I guess you have your own personal chef.
Yes.
So it's not so much like, we're a company that I guess we foster relationships between chefs and clients. So you get your own personal chef assigned to you, and everybody on our staff has like their set clientele.
You have 6 chefs,
We have
including
6.
you?
No, I don't cook.
You don't cook. You're right. You're like, I gotta run this business.
No, I used to cook all the time. I used to cook like, oh man, there was a time I was just cooking like hours and hours and hours a day. And it was crazy, but yeah, I don't cook anymore. It got to be too much with just the business, and also I'm not very good at it. So.
Oh, I'm sure you're great at it.
So, my girls are much better than I am at cooking.
So you have 6 chefs.
We have 6 chefs.
And so you get a new client, you assign them to their own chef.
Yeah, so the client gets their own chef, and that's basically like just their food person. And whether they want like breakfast, lunch, dinner, just dinners, just breakfast, just grab and go things. If they have company coming in and they need extra food this week, or they're going out of town and they only need 1 or 2 things, like you need to pick up LaCroix at the grocery store, like whatever, so that you don't have to worry about going to the store. What are you going to have for dinner? Like,
that is such a relief to take off of people who are not good at cooking, or who have kind of busy, stressful lives.
Or you buy all these groceries and then they go to waste, because then you're like, oh, I have to cook them. I don't want to. And then, you know, or like, oh, I'm starving and I got off work late and I'm just going to stop and get something because I don't have time. But if you have like that healthy meal sitting in your fridge ready to go, and you just go home and warm it up, it's like, it's done. It's way easier to stay on track. It's way easier to
and the food tastes good.
Yeah, hopefully.
No, I mean, I'm sure it does. The pictures are amazing. Vibechefs.com. Tell me, what is it like starting a business? And how much do you have to give of yourself to get this thing off the ground? Because everyone's like, oh, we were kind of talking earlier, it's easy for someone to maybe look at someone like you and you're beautiful, you have this great business happening, it feels like your life is a dream, but really there is a lot that you had to do to make this become a reality.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even want to take credit for it, because I feel like this was such a God thing. Like,
really?
God really just like put this on my lap, and I was like, okay, I'll do this.
But you responded to it. You took the gift and you ran with it.
And it just kind of happened one day at a time. But the reason I say that it was really a God thing is because it's never been like premeditated. I didn't have this like trajectory in my mind of like, all right, I'm gonna go from A to B, and then like this is how we're gonna build the business. I didn't have some plan. Like, I feel like there has been a lot of favor on this from day one. and that I just kind of have been rolling with it. And like, I didn't know how to do anything. I mean, I have had to like I didn't even know how to cook, dude. I was just like, okay, let me figure that out. People will be like, oh, can you do this? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like,
let me go figure out how to
figure that out real quick. Like, people are like, did you go to culinary school? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, no, I went to the school of fake it till you make it. And like, that's what I've been doing.
And you're passionate about it.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I love, love, love that I get to help people and nourish people. Like, I'm a giver. Like, that's one of my love languages is like gifts and acts of service. Like, I love that. So the fact that I get to do that as my job every day is like really fulfilling for me, which is a really great gift. And I think that it wasn't mine. It wasn't my plan. It wasn't my dream, but I do believe there's like a higher purpose on it. And I think that whatever you do, when you do something that glorifies God, like you have favor on that.
I agree.
And so I just feel like I've been really blessed to have that, and that it's been something that has given me the opportunity to take care of myself and take care of others and just help people have a little bit more joy and a little bit more love and a little bit more food.
I love that. Was there ever a part in the process, I know you said you didn't premeditate or plan it, where you're like, this is too hard, I can't do this anymore? Like, God, thank you for this opportunity, but like, this is exhausting, I can't handle this.
I mean, there were definitely a lot of times. I mean, after the first year or so, I like crashed. I hit a wall where I had trouble even getting out of bed.
I just gave all of your energy?
Beyond exhausted and depleted, like mentally, physically. And what's interesting, I think, is when you start to run a business, like it's your baby, you know? Like I did love it and I was passionate about it. And so a lot of times it doesn't feel like work, which is great.
So you can work all the time.
Yeah, and that's what I did. Yeah, that's what I do.
Are you like around the clock?
It's 24/7, yeah. But it's also like, it's really hard to, it happens so little by little that all of a sudden you look back and like, you know, your stress levels or your mental capacity that's being used, like all these things inch up so subtly. And then all of a sudden you're like operating at this level where it's not sustainable and it's really depleting your energy levels and your mental energy, just everything. And it almost happens so quickly that you don't recognize it. And I think that's what happened with me. And I hit this place where I didn't even realize why. And I remember talking to like my doctor, and she was like, do you even realize how much stress you're under? And I was like, I'm not stressed.
I love this.
I'm like, I'm not stressed at
I'm
all.
not stressed at all.
No,
your mind's racing like a million miles a minute.
And that's
Is it just
how it
because you have so
was.
much in your head all the time and you're juggling so many plates? Is that,
Yeah.
no pun intended?
Yeah.
Because you're juggling so much.
Yeah. And you
But
know
you
what?
loved it, so you're not feeling stressed.
Right. And I think, you know, bringing on like a staff was great, but there is a lot of that time is that transition where you are filling both roles because it's too soon to step back from your own tasks and too early to delegate those tasks to everybody else.
There's like a
so you
training
really
period.
have to like do both. Yeah. And
How long do
so-
you have to do both? How long does that period last?
I think it's different for everything. For me, it was, it was several months of doing that consistently to build up. And even now, it still happens, but it's better overall now because I have that. But with every new person you bring on, like that's more responsibility and more concern that I have because I want to make sure that they have what they need and they're getting the hours they need. And it's more liability and it's more, you know, there's more help for sure, but there's more like risk as well. Yeah. So it's more on my plate, but it's less on my plate, you know?
So what did you do and how did you know you hit the crash? What did the crash feel like? Was there a moment where you're like, okay, I'm crashing, I need to readjust? And how did you readjust? What did you do to take care of yourself?
I had to learn to say no.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. And I had to learn, to not stress so much. Like it sounds weird and it's definitely easier said than done. But people would say that to me all the time, like, well, just don't stress, or just don't stress. And I was like,
but you don't understand.
I was like, yeah, I can't. Like, what are you talking about? But you really have to just like little things that I would feel that like bubbling of like, okay, I'm getting stressed out about this. I'd have to play like worst case scenario game basically. So like what's the worst case scenario? Like I just really effed up that casserole. So what can I do? I'd be like, first of all, Holy Spirit, can you fix that casserole? And I'm not kidding, like 9 times out of 10, I get a text I get a text from the client and I'd be like, oh gosh, like they're gonna be like, this wasn't good, whatever. And every time I think I ruined something, people are like, this is so good. And I'm like, what?
So
Thanks, Holy Spirit.
So you call on the Holy Spirit.
Oh yeah.
How do you call on him into your everyday
I'm like,
life?
Holy Spirit, I just jacked that up. Can you please fix it? And he does. He'll be like, oh yeah.
Even when it's done and like you send it on its way and
Yep.
you're like,
I've put stuff in the fridge before and been like, this is terrible. And like, sure enough, I'll get a text from the client like, that was so good. And I'm like, okay. But then inevitably, like, I think I nail something. I'm like, that was freaking insanely good, blah, blah, blah. And the client's like, I don't really like that. Don't make it again. And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, it's just hit or miss. But, yeah, what was the question?
So you hit that crash.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to tell yourself to not stress.
Oh, right.
So worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, like, okay, worst case scenario, they hate the food and then I lose the client. And then like, okay, fine. Like, I mean, or whatever, or worst case scenario.
You're going to live through
like,
it.
Yeah, it's not like nothing is like really that important. And because I think the way that I really learned to not internalize all that stress was by realizing that this isn't my own. It's God's.
Oh, I
and
love
he's
that.
going to take care of it. And it's not like, I have no sense of like, I feel responsibility for it and I feel like love for it and ownership in it, but I don't feel possessive over it.
Wow.
Like clients, chefs, like anything, like the money, like nothing, I don't feel like any of it is mine. And so that helps me really not stress about it. Like if I have a really bad month and we lose a bunch of clients, like that's okay. It's not mine to lose. And it's not mine to win if we do really well. Like that's great and I'm happy, but it's not like, it's just, I don't feel a sense of possession over any of it because I feel like it all belongs to God in the end anyway. And so I just want to be obedient and do what I can do to continue to glorify God through that and help people. But whatever happens in the long run, like I'm okay with that.
April. Now that's like that's blind faith right there. That's
so,
what,
yeah.
that is a leap of faith. And that is such a deep faith. So you developed that deep faith. Have you experienced miracles in your life? Like what makes you have that faith that's so real? Have you seen it? You felt it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I have a relationship now with God that's just like super peaceful. And I feel very different now than I did when I was younger, like ever in my life. I just do feel like I just have a general peace about things and that all of this it's temporal and it's temporary. And like, it just, I don't really have the words to articulate it because I just think that it's more complicated, but also more simple. And I think that's like forever the struggle of people that like get that like have that kind of faith and trying to like communicate that in a way that makes sense, because I don't think it's something that's really very communicable between like human to human, because it's more like spirit to spirit.
Yes.
And you have to like kind of tap into that and feel that, and then like you can tell like your spirit will feel it from my spirit, and then your spirit will convey it to your mind.
And it's a feeling.
Yeah, I feel it. I've heard it. I've seen it. Like I've seen.
What's a miracle you've seen?
I mean, I've seen things happen like within my church and stuff. I've seen people be cured of like cancer, of tumors, leukemia, like chronic illness that has been present for their entire lives, and things have been just like cured. Like, so I mean, healings, like things like that. But also, I mean, I've heard like, you know, I've heard like God speak to me, Jesus speak to me, Holy Spirit, and they all have like their own like subtle little
What do they say? What have they said?
I mean, just,
is it a feeling or is it words?
it's been both. Like I've heard words. I've heard like yeah, like sometimes it's just
like
a feeling.
A clear word.
Sometimes it's like answers. Oh yeah, like there was
What
this,
word?
Okay, so this necklace,
You know I need a
actually,
story.
Yeah. So this is like one of my favorite stories. So one night I was at church and my pastor Alex and Mia, one of our worship leaders, she like spoke this word over me out of nowhere. Just like kind of called me out in front of the entire like thing at the end of service.
Congregation?
Yeah, like was up on the mic. She was leading worship and she stopped and was like, "April, I have a word for you." And I was like,
she just felt called to tell you this.
Yeah. And so she was like, I was like, okay. So she tells me this thing and she said, "I feel like God wants you to know that you're in a season where he's building you up, and that just like Esther, he's building you up and making you strong so that and making you very brave on the inside so that when you have the chance to speak, you'll be able to. And that's what she said. And she's like, I don't know what that means. I don't know why. She said, you should probably go home and read the book of Esther. I have no idea. That's just what I heard. And I was like, okay. And so, so I went home and I read the book of Esther like 10 times, and I was like, oh, she's pretty cool. Like, she's my girl now. And so I just went with that, and I was like, that's cool. Like, whatever that means, I guess I'll find out. And so then like a week later, or I don't know, a month later or something, Alex, our pastor, was talking about how we all have like a heavenly name or a spiritual name or something, and a true name basically that's not like our earthly name. And she's like, mine is Faith, and she was telling the story about it, and I was listening to this podcast like in my car, and I was like, oh, and I was like, cool, I wonder if I have a name. And so in my head I'm thinking like, you know, love or joy or like something like that, right? And all of a sudden, so I was like, Jesus, what's my real name? And all of a sudden, completely from like over here, I heard the word star.
I just
like,
got full body chills.
like so strong and clear. Star.
Like in your head?
Yeah. Like, and I was like, what? Like star. Like it was so like stark and clear, and like it was like boom.
It was
I was
a
like,
voice.
whoa, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a voice like an audible voice. It was like a voice that you hear like in your head, but I heard the word like star. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, that's cool. So I went home and I looked it up, and I was like, that's really pretty. Like, I love it. Thanks, Jesus. And so, so then a couple weeks later, I had gone to coffee with a friend from church, and she was just talking to me about that. And I told her, I was, oh, I got to tell you the story about my name. And so I told her the star story, and she's like, oh, star. She's like, just like Esther. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, the meaning of Esther is star.
That makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
How cool is
Isn't
that?
Cool? She's like, Esther means star. And I was like,
thank you, God.
yeah. I was like, okay. I mean, it was just so
Wow.
special. Yeah. So, I mean, and just like, I don't know, things like that. Like,
Do you think that you experience these connections with God because you're open to Him and you're looking to Him for them? Do you feel like everyone can have these experiences, just not everyone's as open to them?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we're all created to be beings that like worship God. Like, we're all created the same, like.
What do you think the point of life is?
Okay. To glorify God. Like, I think we're here to just like glorify God and spread love. And like whatever way that manifests itself in your life is good. Like, and I think there's multiple ways to do that. Like, I think when you talk about how do you know if you're on the right or the wrong path, I don't necessarily think there is one. I think you can do like millions and millions of different things that will glorify God. And if your heart is in the right place, like, that's all that matters.
It's so easy to get hung up on one path, though, sometimes, especially when we get locked into a career. We're like, this is my identity. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Have you really separated from this is who I am, like as a career based as, like now you're I am April Esther Starr. My work is my work, but that's not my identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I never felt like it was my identity. I still don't. I don't feel like I'm like necessarily called to do that. And I think a lot of people do, and a lot of people do think that they're like, they are. It's not like they just think it. I do think a lot of people are called to specific things. For me, it wasn't like this was some like super strong dream of mine.
But you were available and a vessel and open.
Yeah. And so I'm just trying to be obedient and do that. And whatever it turns into, like if it blows up into a huge thing, that's great. And if it ends tomorrow, like I'm cool with that too.
That's awesome.
Again, I just don't really feel like it's mine to like, it's not, the purpose of what I'm doing is not for my benefit. It's not for my benefit or my glory. It's for His. So however that plays out, like that's cool with me.
I love that, April. That's amazing. I just was watching Joel Osteen and Oprah. They were doing a life lesson session, and Joel Osteen was saying, your big dream or your big point should be to benefit others and to show God to others.
Right. Yeah.
And that is what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like for me. I feel like my purpose on earth, like what am I supposed to do, is to like love people. Like I feel like and I don't mean to say this to sound weird, but I feel like I'm really good at loving people.
I love that.
I love to do it. And I feel.
How do you like to love people?
like in every way. Like I love to tell people, I love to show people, I love to give gifts, I love to like.
You want to make people feel valuable.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I have a heart for people that are like struggling in any way. Like I just want to make people feel good about themselves. Like what I do, I guess, is whenever I see somebody, if I ever see somebody and have like a bad thought, or like if I'm annoyed or I like, you know, I'm in my own head about something, or anytime I see anybody, I always try to look at them like through God's eyes. So I'll try to like feel the love that God has for that person when I come into contact with them. And then I feel like it changes my whole perspective on anything. Like if someone's being mean to me or someone's rude or someone cuts you off or like whatever.
Instead of getting mad back.
Yeah, because it's not
about
not
you.
them.
Yeah,
it's not about me. And it's honestly, it's probably not even about them. It's like they're still like, it's because of whatever they're struggling with. It's whatever fear or anger or like hurt that they've been through that's causing them to react that way.
How did you gain that wisdom? How did you
I
get
don't
that
know.
heart for people?
That is like Holy Spirit deposited.
Really?
Yeah. And I think I had this revelation one day because I was really stressed out and scared about something or like freaking out, and I yelled at my dog. And I was like,
Christmas is your dog.
Yeah.
You can't yell at Christmas.
I know. And so I was like,
maybe Halloween you could yell at, but not Christmas.
yeah, I know. I yelled at him, and I was like, immediately I was just like, why did I do that? And I looked at him, and like he didn't do anything wrong, you know.
You just were venting.
And and I just snapped at him, and I was like, oh. And I was like, I did that because I'm scared about XYZ right now.
I took it out
and
on
that
Christmas.
fear like came out of my mouth, and like I imparted that onto him. And so I just realized that when
That's being aware right there.
Yeah, it was like this moment where I was like, oh, because then I realized every time anybody is like mean to you or rude or negative or they're complaining or they're like whatever, anything that's like ugly or not good, it comes from a place of like hurt or fear. So I like immediately try to recognize that and like think like, how can I help soften that for that person instead of reacting like, okay, like, or being rude back or like anything like that.
Someone
I just,
out.
I'm like, oh, let me just buy your groceries, or like, let me just like.
You return that hostility or that anger or that fear that someone is having with love.
Yeah.
And that's how you change the world, April.
Yeah.
Wow, you're wise. You are the full package. You might be like
so
Saint
sweet.
April.
Okay. But thank you. No, and I like, again, I don't feel like I don't want to take credit for this because this is all like, these are all things that I feel like I've really learned, and
But you've wanted to learn these. You've tried to learn these. I can tell you've intentionally developed into this person.
yeah, but I think that my heart for that just comes from pursuing God. Like I think the more you pursue him, the more you like just have that love for people, because he taught us to love. It's not even our love. It's like his, you know? And I just want to be a vessel to like let his love come through me. Does that make sense?
Freaking amazing. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. Last question.
Yes.
Your whole thing's been inspiring, but I like to leave your light. So leave some inspiration. Everything you do is inspirational, but leave some inspiration of how you really would like to inspire people or how you've been inspired.
I guess, yeah. I mean, inspiration. I don't know. I guess for me, that's what it is. It's like taking care of other people and like loving other people. I really believe in what they say, that it comes back and it comes back bigger than you put out. So loving other people and taking care of other people, like you're going to be loved and cared for. And if you pursue that intentionally with your heart, like your heart is going to be well taken care of. So just rest in knowing that that principle is sound and that you can just like, I don't know, we just cut it off right there.
No, that's so true. You'll be taken care of if you give love. It will come back bigger.
Yeah. That sounds super cheesy.
No,
but
it
it's
sounds
legit.
really legit.
Yeah.
And I love it, and I feel so inspired.
Thanks.
April.
I'm so happy.
Thank you for joining me
Yeah,
today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so
April
sweet of you.
Nemeth.
Yeah.
I was trying to call you Nemeth. April Nemeth. Vibe Chefs. Also, just the most incredible, inspiring person ever. Thank you so
You're
much for
very
joining me
welcome.
today.
Of course.
What a little light you are to the world.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you.